Welcome back to the Broadcast to Post podcast, where we break down the tools, tech, and workflows shaping the future of media production. I'm your host, MIchael Kammes with Key Code Media, and if this is your first time listening, a quick reminder, Key Code Media is more than just a reseller. We're a trusted systems integrator for media production, post-production, broadcast, and AV workflows. So whether you're building out a new post-production suite, a TV studio, a control room, or a screening space, our team helps you find the right gear, design the right workflow, and support you long after installation. Plus, we provide exclusive discounts on equipment from folks like Blackmagic Design, EditShare, Telestream, SNS, LucidLink, and 400 other partners. And the best part? We offer free consultations to make sure you're set up for success on your next project. Now, timing couldn't be better for today's episode. Adobe MAX 2025 just wrapped, and this is the event where Adobe unveils what's next across the Creative Cloud. As one of Adobe's integration partners, we're lucky enough to sit down with someone who's been right in the middle of all of it. Today, we're joined by Morgan Prygrocki from Adobe, who's here to give us an inside look at the newest features in Premiere Pro, Firefly, and more. We'll check out object selection for masking and tracking, caption translation, and my favorite, curse word detection and bleeping. Plus, we'll discuss some of the mind-bending Adobe Sneaks projects showcased by Adobe's research and engineering teams at Adobe MAX. And lastly, Adobe will share some announcements that you may have missed during the very busy MAX conference. Hi, Morgan. Thanks for joining us on the heels of Adobe MAX last week. How are you recovering?
I'm recovering, attempting to recover. Thank you for asking. It was a wild week.
Social media blew up with pictures from the event. I had a lot of friends texting me things saying, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And that's why I'm so glad you're here today, because you can actually show us some of the things that folks were taking pictures of and posting on social media and sending to us. So why don't we start off with what's new in Firefly?
Of course. Yes, we've had no shortage of really amazing announcements over the past week. And one of the key stars of the show of Adobe MAX was Firefly Boards. Firefly Boards was also formerly known as Project Concept around this time last year, has officially gone into general release as of the last several weeks. And it's really blown up to be an infinite canvas that allows users to not only ideate on, static generative imagery, but even has turned into a collaborative canvas that allows people to generate video, even start to manipulate some 3D objects. And we're not stopping there. So I think Boards was definitely a key star of the show, in addition to a lot of third-party models that were also mentioned throughout all of the demos. So today I'm going to be covering some of the third-party model integrations you're going to be seeing across our suite of tools, in addition to a couple of new surfaces that allow you to make some basic edits, manipulate some audio that have been long-standing feature requests, as well as some really amazing quality of life features inside of Premiere Pro that allow you to have a little bit more fine-tuned control over not only your generations, but also your shot content as well.
Awesome. Well, let's get started.
Great. All right. So I'm sharing my screen here. Now, if this is your first time seeing Firefly Boards, when you first open up this tool, it's actually just a completely blank canvas. It'll be completely blank like this. I started to collaborate with a few folks on my team on a really funny little animation short. It's basically a pitch trailer for an animation concept about a girl who's in Tokyo, Japan in the future, where everybody has a robot companion, and she brings home this robot companion, much to her cat's dismay, and hilarity ensues. That is the concept of the project that we're creating here. I've written out a couple of story beats that I want to generate some storyboard artwork for, and maybe even some pitch viz video. I've also generated some example logos here using Firefly. And we've actually just just rolled out a fun quality of life feature update with editing text in generative content that went a little bit under the radar, but it's something that I see all of the time, so I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. So diving right in, Firefly Boards in general is designed to work similarly to how Miro Boards works. If you're familiar with that way of working, everything is designed to be freeform. You can resize things, move things around if you like, but it's designed to be a canvas that allows you to create your own ideas, generate content. This particular asset I generated using Firefly right here. It also maintains all of your prompts and also allows you to combine your own media, either from your device or your Adobe Creative Cloud storage, or if you're just getting started on a project like me and you've got prompter's block and have no idea of where to start, it also has some ties into Adobe Stock as well, which is particularly useful if you want to dive in and start to search for inspiration images of how you might want to start to formulate your story. Now, I am going to come back to this text edit right here because I do just want to show you a little bit about how the ideation works. And this is an infinite canvas, so I will be moving around the canvas just a little bit. But if you're starting with Adobe Stock, if I hover over some of these assets, of course, our project is about a robot. So I searched in Adobe Stock for a couple of different robot images just to start to get a feel of what exactly I might want my robot to look like. I'll zoom in a little bit here so you can see better. So we've got some humanoid robots. These are a little bit scary. I don't think we're trying to create iRobot here. I opted for going with something that was a little bit cuter like this guy right here, but this was super helpful in helping me work out through my own ideas of what it is I actually wanted to create. So, if you're new to prompting, I always like to lean on stock as well as my own photos just to help organize my own ideas. So, maybe I want this cute robot. This story also takes place in Tokyo as well. And if you search Adobe Stock for some Tokyo footage, you're going to get a lot of stock footage-y type content, a lot of aerials, a lot of time-lapse content, but it also helps me figure out kind of some possible ideas of how I might want to animate camera movements and video generations, for instance. But of course, since we're dealing with stock footage, sometimes it can be a little bit sterile for what I'm looking for. And I found that pretty quickly with some of the character poses here, as well as, my story is featuring a cat, very on brand for me, I know. But these cats just didn't really have like some of the emotion that I was looking for. So of course, I had to bring in my own pride and joys here with my own cats making some silly faces that I'm going to apply to some of those animation storyboard images using some of these silly little faces here. You're not going to find anything like that in Adobe Stock. Similarly, for some of the Tokyo reference material, I was relying on some of my colleagues in Japan to pass along some street-level references that were a little bit more indicative of some of the scene locations that I intend to create some story beat moments around. Specifically things like this, like cool Japanese lanterns that I might want to have as a background and layer some folks in front of, or just, street-level shots here that look a little bit more indicative of everyday life. So I really, really like boards for just helping me work through what it is I want to generate, because friends do not let friends start generating without any sort of image reference. Half the time it's a good exercise in just making sure you know what it is you're trying to create. Now, diving into some of the image generation right here, you'll notice that in addition to all of the Firefly models, which we have embedded into boards from Firefly Image Model 3, which is super, super fast, to the brand new Firefly Image Model 5, which is currently in preview right now, that allows for hyper-realistic, really lifelike generations and everything in between. We also have a number of partner models as well, ranging from Flux models to Nano Banana, which I use used a lot in this particular animation project, to GPT Image, Runway Gen 4, and others. Pro tip, if there are models you're using that you love that you do not see on this list, please, please, please suggest the model here. We are constantly adding new models as fast as we can, so do us a favor, keep those suggestions coming. I'll scroll down here so you can start to get a sense of how I generally like to start some of my concept art generation. Now, I'm a little bit old school, and I'm one of those people that loves to draw on an iPad here, but I'm not a very good artist with this pencil, despite all of my attempts. So my hand-drawn composition references like this are maybe a step above stick figures, not very good. But what I really love about this tool was, especially for image generation, if I load this prompt here, and some of these, maybe it's this one right here. And for whatever reason, it is not loading. Let's try this one. Maybe it's this one. I used this hand-drawn image right here as a composition reference for which to generate some of these line drawings. So I can start out with a really rough sketch and then slowly iterate and refine my prompt from there to improve upon it. Now, if you're somebody who likes to visually test out various different types of styles, Firefly is also really helpful in the sense that, if I generate, some anime concept art right here, and I'm maybe not completely sold on this layout, we've just rolled out the ability of this vary button here, which allows you to generate 16 different variants of this image and roll them all at the same time in the background so that you have many, many images to choose from. If I zoom in just a little bit here, you'll notice that it's changed out different characters, different robot styles, slightly different scene layouts. So if I'm just trying to get content on the on the surface as fast as I possibly can, that vary button allows me to play around with various different concepts. Now, in addition to vary, there's also the option of generating more in this style, but different subjects. And then you also do have the ability of generating a bunch more content while keeping the main subjects, but changing around different styles. I knew that I wanted a very specific type of animation style, so I didn't play around with these too much. But just so you know, those options also exist here. So if you've got prompter's block, we've got you covered from Adobe stock, a lot of these variants tools. These are all here to help make sure that you get the right idea on the canvas as quickly as possible. Now, one of the things that I did was I played around with a couple of different poses of my little robot character here. And I really liked this. I generated this in Nano Banana, and I isolated out a couple of different movements that I took from this little character chart right here. But I want to also alert you to a couple of new things that went a little bit under the radar with boards, with the recent release of boards. First off, we've got some quick actions here. So I can easily remove the background with one click. So if I want to isolate out characters in a 2D sense and layer them into other backgrounds, I can do that. I'll make this guy a little bit smaller. I can throw them in the scene. This is really easy for just getting basic layered outlines on the canvas. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can always use this image reference as a composition reference to generate more content on top of later on. But the challenge with this is he's 2D. I can't really do too much with him in terms of positioning him. It's pretty much just going to be a flat reference. However, we've also just rolled out the new ability of converting this image to 3D. So if you click on Rotate Object, I've already kind of pre-baked an example right here, you'll notice that I now have 3D level control over my little character here so that I can place him anywhere I like in this image. So this is super useful for really just having fine-tuned control over the layout of various objects within a scene. I'll show you a little bit more below about how I used that. So I was playing around with kind of a little bit more of a slightly more photorealistic animation concept here. Maybe I wanted to consider something other different than 2D animation. I started off with a Nano Banana storyboard generation here, but I quickly realized that getting character consistency with the exact little robot guy that I wanted, along with my character, was going to be really challenging, even with the world's most complex prompt. So one of the things that's baked into boards that is super useful is the ability of editing images. So I can add objects, I can remove objects, I can use generative expand to change the canvas size. So similar to how generative expand works in Photoshop, you simply just drag the edges of the border and Firefly will fill in with additional pixels that remain in context of what your generation already looks like. I won't do that, but just so you know, it's in there. And I removed this little robot guy because I wanted to replace it with my little 3D character so that I can position him just right in this particular image. So I removed that robot here. And then if I zoom in a little bit, you can see that I was able to layer in my little 3D robot guy. And by the way, this is something that you can easily do just by dragging characters over certain generations. And so, you know, if for whatever reason one of your characters kind of disappears behind some of the images in your canvas, if you just right click and bring to front or bring send backwards, you can control the layer of which they are presented on the canvas. Pro tip right there. So I can layer him in. I can adjust his little position here so he's perfectly aligned with where I want him to be, a lot in context with our character. And then I just use that as an image reference for which to generate a new asset. Okay, so I started to play around with this. I don't know if I really like the eyes. Maybe I wanted to go back to my initial 2D reference here, but just so you can see what my prompt was in order to generate this, all of your prompts are loaded here, right here under that load button. So it's also super helpful if you want to maintain all of your prompts over time and not have to search through your generation history in order to find specific assets. Ultimately, I ended up selecting kind of this more 2D animation style. I thought that this kind of fit with the vibe of what I was trying to create a little bit more. So this is one of the storyboard scenes of our friendly companion robot pushing a cart full of food in a grocery store with a very mischievous cat here. But oftentimes what we sometimes run into with some of these generations is that, you know, if I zoom in really tightly, you can see it's a little bit blurry. I just wish it was upscaled just a little bit so I could refine some of that detail, especially if I'm going to be using this as an image reference for which to generate video from later on, which is why I'm super happy at Max. We also just released the ability of upscaling your images using Topaz Labs Bloom. So what this will allow you to do is upscale these images to 4K. You can control how much enhancement you would like. In this particular instance, I think I selected low creativity here. All right, so if I zoom in here, the level of detail that's now on this asset versus what was there before, pretty substantial difference between something that's just, you know, a little bit fuzzy once you zoom into the details versus what you get with this lovely Topaz upscaled 4K image. You can see some of that fur detail that I was really looking for. All right, so that's Topaz. Now, Boards also supports video generation as well, because what do you want to do once you've got the right storyboard assets? You want to generate previs or pitch viz video on top of that. So what I really like about Boards is that we've rolled out the ability of also generating video with a series of both Firefly models as well as third-party models all embedded into the same canvas. So if I wanted to, I could start with an image that was generated using Nano Banana, which this particular image was in this instance. And if I want to animate a video using Firefly on top of that, because I like a specific characteristic of that model, I can mix and match which models I want to use to get the best output. In this instance, I believe I used VO 3.1 to generate a little establishing shot of Tokyo with everybody's companion robots as my little establishing shot right here. Now, I've put together kind of like a little film strip of all the various little assets. I'm still in the process of building these out. But one thing that we quickly realized is we've got a lot of new users that are generating video that might not be full-fledged users of Premiere Pro, which is why we've also just rolled out the ability of editing these clips together using our new Firefly video editor, which you can access on firefly.adobe.com. Now, this works similar to how Premiere Pro works in the sense that there's still a timeline, you still got your media, but there's also a generative surface that is built right into the tool as well, so that as you're stringing some of these clips together, if you notice, maybe I want to generate a little insert shot right here, you can also do that directly in context with the generation tab right here as well. It's also a multi-track editor, and you'll notice that there's buttery smooth performance as I'm rolling over each one of these clips for scrubbing. And it also supports multi-video tracks, multi-audio tracks, and I'm going to show you some of how I created this fun little audio below here next. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention we also have some new editorial surfaces for those that are just looking to get some basic, quick editorial cuts in a complementary setting to some of our generative video. Some of my favorite updates are audio related, and I'd be remiss if I didn't cover a couple of those. So on this little track, I created a couple of silly voiceover tracks. I created some text-to-speech voiceover in the character voice of our cat, along with some generative music. So I'll show you a little bit now about how we created those. Popping over into our new Generate Speech beta, which you can find on firefly.adobe.com/generate/speech. What you'll find is a multimodal text-to-speech generator. So we do have a Firefly text-to-speech model that has various different stock voices here that are preloaded for you to choose from. These range from voices old and young, men and women, and everyone in between. All of these voices are designed to be commercially safe from the ground up. So if you like what you generate using Firefly speech, you can go ahead and use that. But there's also an option to, if I hit go back here, there's also an option to select the 11 Labs Multilingual V2 text-to-speech generator right here, which will also give you access to a series of various voices to choose from. This UX will also allow you to control the speed of your speaker. And of course, you can always go back in and make edits to the transcript right here. Now, I've created a very simple, silly little voiceover track with a disgruntled cat. I'll play this for you. Let me know if you have any trouble hearing it.
My life was perfect. Then Lisa brought home a robot. A robot. The robot plays with me. The robot apologizes. The robot is on my couch. I hate the robot.
Okay, it's a little silly hearing everything split out into lines, but I'm going to do some little cuts and incorporate that into various different clips in our Pitch Fizz trailer, which we're creating here. So I liked that. I already downloaded it. But, the other thing that we're missing is music. And I could probably go to Adobe Stock. I could search through various different stock tracks to try to find just the right music. But we've also just rolled out Generate Soundtrack, which is in beta. at Adobe MAX this past week as well. So if I navigate to firefly.adobe.com, generate soundtrack, this is now an option, which allows you to generate very specific tracks based on vibes, style, and mood. So you're not generating from a specific prompt per se, but you can describe a vibe that you're looking for. So if I'm looking for something, let's say cartoony, I can add that as a vibe here. I also have control, if I scroll down here a little bit, over the energy of the track, the tempo of the track, along with the duration. And then it will also have like a series of like other purposes that you can enter in here. I put children's movie in as a custom purpose, but you'll notice that we have some that are pre-selected here for you for some of the more common music generation tasks that we see. From there, I already pre-baked this a little bit, but it will give you 4 different track options. It only takes a few seconds to generate. Option 1, let's take a look. All right, not too bad. All right, kind of basic. I think I liked this one the best. Let's have a listen. I think that's going to be the track here. So I can download this track just up here at the top, download audio only. We'll save that for later so that we can bring it back into our timeline here and cut everything together. Now, another great example of when you might want to take a timeline like this over to Premiere Pro is where if you wanted to go in and do some audio modifications with keyframing down the audio volume around some of that voiceover track with features like auto ducking, that would be another fantastic example of when Premiere Pro would probably better serve your needs. Just some of those fine-tuned controls. All right, so switching gears a little bit, I know we've been building this board that's a little bit more animation-centric, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, you know, Boards actually does have the ability of generating some really fantastic, visually stunning content that serves the needs of all sorts of styles, including photorealistic ones here as well. This is just yet another example of where I've been able to, if I load this prompt, I've taken some Adobe stock images over here. I've painted in a couple of little pirate ships here, and then use that as references for which to then generate this Firefly image from. And then from there, I would animate video on top of that using this as an image reference. One important thing that I do want to call out about Boards is that if you hover over the top right corner of a lot of these assets, you're going to see this little chiclet that shows you which version of the model was used in order to generate this asset, and that applies to both still images as well as video content. This is important because later on down the line, if you need to be able to go back and prove which models have gone into the creation of specific assets, these content credentials here kind of serve as that digital nutrition label that travel alongside that asset, even after the asset has been exported out of the application. Just to show you a little bit about how this works in practice, you can actually travel to one of 2 sites, the first of which is either contentauthenticity.org. Pop over to the verify section here. You can drag in any still or video assets, or you can also navigate over to contentauthenticity.org there, and this will pull up an opportunity for you to also drag in those same assets. I dragged in one of those photorealistic assets from the board that I created several weeks back. It will show me here which tool or surface was used to create the asset, which in this case it's Firefly, and it will also list what third-party models were used. So I believe the specific asset I dropped in was generated using VL. So we do list, even if it's a Firefly, if it's generated in a Firefly surface, what third-party models were used in order to create that asset, along with any sort of reference material here. It may also contain your name here at the bottom. If you're an individual user, Adobe provides my license, so it'll say issued by Adobe, but there's also an opportunity to also attach your name to those content credentials as well. Okay, finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention one last little quality of life update that's been a huge ask from a lot of our users that's recently come to Firefly's generate video section of their site, which is the ability of uploading video references for which to base your video generations off of. So I can drag in a video that has very specific character motion. I could also drag in a video that maybe has very specific camera motion if I want a very specific type of aerial camera shot. I can provide video references that are up to 10 seconds in length, where your Firefly generation will adhere to whatever the outline edges are of that video reference. In addition to that, we've also just quietly rolled out this ability here at the bottom to generate with a transparent background. So if you're trying to generate maybe some fog, some atmospheric elements, maybe some particles, snow, holiday season's coming up, this is a fantastic new feature that most people have missed. We just rolled this out a couple of weeks ago, but this will allow you to generate against either a green screen backdrop, or if you just want pure alpha channel, it'll give you some download options there. By the way, there are a couple of other models that do also support transparent generation, like Luma's Ray 3 model here as well. So you're also not just limited to Firefly video for that. And if you decide to do any sort of transparent generation, just a quick shout out. Boards that remove background feature here that I mentioned earlier also really works well on any sort of smoke or particle effects like this. If I just hit remove background, give it a second or two to populate, it'll isolate out the background, and then I can download this image and use that as an image reference to upload right here, which will get you some really, really good transparent effects. Just my little pro tip. All right, I'm going to be switching over into Premiere Pro. Now, you might have noticed, if you're like me and are playing around with the Premiere Pro betas pretty regularly, that we've recently just rolled out this new option in the toolbar menu here called the Object Mask tool. Now, this is live in versions 25.6 of the beta and onwards, depending on when you're watching this. What this tool allows you to do, if I select it, and I select this clip right here, let me select it. If I hover over any object in frame, you'll notice I haven't even clicked anything. It's just automatically selecting that object right away. I can right-click on it or click on it, pop over into the effects controls menus here, and run a quick little tracking pass. Now, this is a hummingbird that I generated. I love using this as an example because his wings are moving super fast here. What that's going to do is run a quick tracking pass. If you're working with very challenging dynamic moving objects, you can also run a backwards tracking pass on it as well. You can mouse forward and backwards. It just kind of depends on your subject. Once that tracking pass is completed, I can just right click on that asset, change opacity mask, and I can then layer that into a series of other shots. So in this instance, I'm probably going to do some keyframing. I'll pop over into the properties menu here, maybe change the scale of this bird here, and maybe edge it a little bit closer to this shrub right here. I can probably do some better keyframing, but just those little quality of life updates that allow you to get a little bit more out of some of those generations are starting to make their way into Premiere Pro. This object selection is also super useful for any color workflows as well. If you're trying to do some complex masks, this has been a monumental effort that the Premiere Pro team has put in over the last several months. So please, please, please check it out. Give us feedback. It's still in beta right now. We love for our users to run some tests while it's still in beta. All right. One quick thing that you might have missed during the keynote is we've also rolled out visual search across all of the assets in your project. Now, if you're on versions 25.2 or later of Premiere Pro, you actually already have access to this. And the ways that you access this new search window are either by navigating to this little magnifying glass menu right up here, or by going over into the Windows menu and selecting search. What this is going to allow you to do is search for visual moments across your media. So in this instance, I was searching for bird, but if I want to search for beach, I can just use natural language to search across all of the assets within my project. The second I start typing in characters, it's going to start surfacing those visual results. And best of all, if I double click on any of this, you'll notice the in and out point is already selected for me. So if I want to drag that into my timeline, it's designed for speed. Being able to find those moments quickly, drag them into a timeline is what it's all about. But wait, there's more with search. It's not just visuals that we can search across. Later this summer, we also just added the ability of searching across audio as well, in addition to being able to search across transcripts as well as metadata. So if I want to search for, let's do a multimodal search, for instance, and I want to search for explosions. It's going to pull up every visual instance of where it's detected an explosion. It will also pull up any audio instance of where it's detected that. So I've generated a couple of fun little sound effects here. Let's have a listen. That sounds like a fun explosion. This one. All right. Technically, those are Canon sound effects, but I'll allow it for an explosion sound, as well as any sort of instance of where someone might have mentioned that keyword in the transcript, or if it exists anywhere in the metadata. For a lot of generative content, keywords like this will sometimes come up in the prompt itself. All right, so that is search. One other thing that I do want to show off is some new captioning features that we've also quietly rolled out that we showed during our keynote. So if I go over into some of this interview footage here that I have, and I pop over into the text-based editing workspace, which of course you can always access through the text-based editing workspace right here, or under the text option inside the window. That's how you pull this window up. You'll notice I already have my transcript here of this particular clip already preloaded here. Now, hopefully everybody listening in is already familiar with Premiere Pro's captions workflow. Once I have my transcript set here, I can simply pop over into the captions tab, and I can create captions from transcript. Hopefully this should be old news for everybody. This has existed in Premiere Pro since 2021. What is new is the ability of now localizing those captions into one of 27 different other languages. So you access that by going to the little ellipses menu here and selecting Translate Captions. What that's going to do is it's going to pull up a drop-down menu for you to select which languages you'd like to translate those captions into. So, and I'll have to have some help from the audience here because I'm not a French speaker or a German speaker, but we're going to try it. I'm going to select both of those languages. You can select as many languages as you like, by the way. And then I will hit under advanced preferences. You can control how long, you want some of the maximum length in characters to be. You can choose if you want those caption lines single spaced or double spaced, of course. But I'm just going to leave those as is. Hit translate, and you'll notice right here in the timeline, it's already started to create additional caption tracks in the background. We're already done here. So let's kill the English version and let's see. I believe that's French. So we have translated French captions here that are, by the way, editable. So if you need to go in and make any sort of updates, you can, of course, go in and update some of that translation if you like. And if we zoom in on the bottom here, you'll notice it'll even tell you which service is used for that translation. Now, bear in mind, depending on which starting language you're going to and from, the back-end translation service might be different. I'll kill the French caption track here. We'll pop over into the German track. Give this a second. Let's see. Not sure which German service this is. We'll have to give it a second to load here, but this might be Microsoft translation as well. Point being, there's a few different translation services depending on that language combination. All right, and one final thing that I'm going to show you today, as we've already known, I've created our fun little voiceover track earlier here using the new generate speech function inside of Firefly. If I pop over into the transcript here, we've got that same audio track that we were listening to earlier. But I was playing around with some funny ideas of how we could show off our new censored word feature. So if I pop over into that little ellipses menu, hit the censored word lists, it's not always appropriate to throw in 4 little words in these types of demos, but you can actually enter in any word you like as a potential censored word that we are going to auto bleep. So I've already added in the word robot because our cat voiceover hates this robot. So we're going to treat that as a censored word here. Of course, you can add many additional extra words if you like. You can also upload and import your a word list here if you like, if you've got an Excel file of words that aren't allowed to be set on air. I'm going to hit save. And then from there, if I pop over into this little filter menu, I can pull up censored words, and it's already highlighted everywhere in my transcript where that censored word exists. But that's great that we can see where those words are. What can we actually do with it? If I pop over into apply effect, you'll notice we've got a bunch of funny options here for you to choose from, ranging from bleeps just to muting those censored words. Toy horn is particularly funny. We've got duck quack. If you want to upload your own custom sound that you'd like for that bleeping sound, you have the ability of doing that as well. But since this story is about a cat and dogs are also probably hated by cats, I kept it a dog bark. And I can choose to either apply that sound to just one word at a time, or I can choose to apply it to all. So we're going to apply it to all. And you'll notice down here, if I zoom in a little bit on the track, it's already auto-positioned where those bleeping noises or dog barking noises are on that audio track. So let's give this a listen.
Perfect. Then Lisa brought home the plays with me. The apologizes. The is on my couch.
You get the idea. So anyway, that is censored words. We just showed it on the Adobe MAX stage. You can access it through that little ellipses menu in the text-based editing workspace here through that censored word list. Check it out. Would love to see what you create with it. We've also rolled out the ability of generating your own sound effects. Now, I generated this video using VO3, and you'll notice it's kind of sad without any sound effects. It needs a little bit of extra to really sell this asset. And one thing that would be traditionally really challenging with a shot like this is you'll notice, I'll play it again, the car kind of moves a little bit away from the camera and then it slowly whips around the side of the, virtual camera, if you will. This would probably take me a while to find just the right sound effect for this. Now, I can choose to generate something super generic here through a prompt. I can type in muscle car driving down the street, muffled sound, and I can hit generate from here. I'll probably get a very decent result, but it's probably not going to follow kind of the same rhythm as the actual video that I'm trying to create this for. There's also another option where I can record a sample of my own voice and then use that as a Foley reference for which to base our audio generation on top of. It's incredibly embarrassing to demo live, so we're going to do it. I'm going to record my voice here, and then we'll apply that to the generated output. Okay, I think that's, I don't think anyone's going to be hiring me as a Foley artist, but it's good enough for what we need. We're going to hit generate. and give it a couple of seconds, and it'll give me 4 different options that I can choose from on the playback. All right, so let's try option 1. Sounds like it probably needs some car work done. Okay, option 1, option 2. Not bad. Also, anyway, hopefully you get the idea here. Generate sound effects works for both generic ambient sounds, if you like, as well as very tailored sounds that you can use your voice as a reference to generate on top of. Check it out. This is also accessible on firefly.adobe.com.
So Morgan, you're showing all these different models that are working within Adobe tools. Are we able to use Adobe credits for this, or do we have to go to the individual model providers and open an account with them?
Fantastic question. And this was the first question I myself asked as well, because I'm somebody who's subscribing to all of the various different tools as they come to market. All of our third-party models do pull from your Firefly credits. So everything is consolidated in one place. It's really convenient if you don't want to have to subscribe to various different services and manage what your credits look like on a month-over-month basis. Depending on which models you're using, they generate and consume, or pardon me, depending on which models you use, the consumption rate depends on which resolution you use, which model you're using, whether you're using something like an HDR feature. In the bottom right-hand corner, though, there should always be a little pop-up that tells you how many credits you're spending for each generation. And we also do have a handy FAQ that gives you a little bit of a list in terms of what those third-party models consume in terms of credits.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that, because I too am looking at all my different subscriptions and realizing how many are AI based, and I'd love just to consolidate that down to just one provider. With all of these tools that you're showing in the web version of Firefly, are there any that you can speak to that may be making their way down into the desktop applications?
Great question. At this point, all of these are web-based models, and I think, really a lot of that is attributed to the fact that as quality continues to get better and better, the size of the models tends to get larger. So for now, these are all cloud-based models. However, there are assistive AI features like the search functionality I showed off in Premiere Pro that actually do operate on device. So that is designed to work on sensitive material. We understand that there are instances where people might not be connected to the internet. So features like search are designed to run on device, but we're not generating any new pixels from prompts there. We're simply using that as an assistive way to find media that already exists within our project. Things that are generating new pixels, for the most part, do require an internet connection, including generative extend in Premiere Pro.
So another point I want to hammer home, Morgan, is that these models that Adobe has generated, that Adobe has released, these are ethically sourced, and legally you're safe to use them for whatever you want to use them for, even commercial applications.
Correct. We have Adobe's Firefly approach was designed from the ground up to be commercially safe. So what that means is that the content that exists in our training data sets is coming from Adobe stock content, any content that we have licensed to train on, or any content that we've properly licensed. And as a result, we are able to offer things like indemnification. That said, there are third-party models that do exist in our tools, like Boards, which we showed a little bit of today. Whenever you're using third-party models, Boards will give you a pop-up that says, I understand I'm responsible for choosing the commercial safety of this model. Really, a lot of the decision around that is the various different use cases that we've noticed users starting to use and rely on these generative models for are sometimes in pre-production, where you don't really need a commercially safe model. You're just trying to iterate and get something uber specific, where there might actually be a benefit to having some understanding of the history of the internet. So for that reason, we've decided to lean into giving users freedom of choice around which models they'd like to use. However, the guardrails that do exist in Adobe surfaces are content credentials will be attached to any Firefly or third-party generation if they are generated in an Adobe surface. So for example, if I'm generating using, let's say, VO in Boards, will have a content credential. If I am generating in a third-party tool using that same model, will not have a content credential. So that digital nutrition label is something that we've found a lot of business customers specifically really needing to have some sort of digital record of, which makes Adobe a nice surface for maintaining that. In addition to that, all of the third-party models that we are exposing in Adobe Surfaces cannot train on any content that you generate in an Adobe Surface. So you can also have a little bit of comfort knowing that if I'm generating for a project and using some of these third-party models, none of the content you generate can be used to inform the foundational training data set of those other third-party models. So we feel like those guardrails are pretty important. We understand that this is an evolving space. There's some California laws that are coming into effect in 2026. So I'm sure, this is going to continue to evolve as a standard. If you're interested in finding out more about content credentials and the open source spec that Adobe is contributing to, which is the C2PA spec, sits underneath the Linux Foundation and is not owned by Adobe, but there are many really, really smart companies that are all contributing to that spec. I will leave a link in the chat here. Would love for you to get involved. We feel like this is something that really is a community-driven effort.
Thank you so much, Morgan. There's so much cool stuff there. That would be fine for me. I wouldn't need any more, but I know Adobe made some other announcements last week at Adobe MAX, so maybe you could cover the ones that some of us may have missed.
Of course, there's too many announcements, too little time. So in addition to new Firefly Image Model 5, in addition to the new Firefly Video Editor, in addition to all of the fantastic features that are coming to boards, we also had a series of other big announcements ranging from a new AI assistant in Adobe Express that's going to empower people of every single skill level to create polish beyond the template content that reflects their unique brand or style simply by describing what they want through natural language. What you're also going to see over the next couple months is more updates around a fun new announcement called Project Graph, which is a node-based tool that allows users to create highly customized ways of controlling generative models alongside their own content. And in addition to that, Adobe also launched a big new YouTube partnership for YouTube Shorts that you'll also see coming into the wild a little bit more in the next couple months as well. These are just the tip of the iceberg of what was announced at MAX. If you're a nerd like me and always like a little sneak peek in terms of what's coming next, I would highly recommend checking out some of the sessions that we did around Adobe Sneaks. We do this every year at Adobe MAX, and this is really an opportunity where our research teams get to get on the main stage and present some of the new features that they've been working on. And depending on what you tell us you would like to see the most used in your workflow, that's generally what we decide to prioritize next in terms of features. There was tons of really cool research projects with 3D applications, with some really great audio manipulation sneaks as well. So please take a look at those. If you're really excited about any of those, we want to hear about it. You are the deciding factor in terms of what we decide to work on next.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Morgan. Thank you so much for joining us and showing all this new tech. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
Thanks so much for having me.